Good evening everyone and welcome to the F1 2018 AOR High Energy F3 League on the PC Season 16 round number 8, the French Grand Prix. My name is Thompson and joining me in the commentary box for tonight is Aladar. Good evening.
Hello. Well, welcome back everybody. Looking forward to this race on a track that we've not seen before in AOR.
That is absolutely true. I hope it's going to be an interesting race. I've heard it's supposed to be somewhat of a slipstream fest. So I hope we're in for quite a few battles on track.
Yeah, no, nothing like a good slipstream fest. That's always a fun one indeed.
Absolutely agree. Yeah, so let's have a look at the standings maybe before we start.
Transfer to the standings now. There you go.
So we're on screen right now. Another interesting fact, you can see our championship leader Ramdrop missed last race, and he will miss this race as well. And considering he's only 25 points ahead, IE Pony can draw with Ramdrop if he wins this race. So we'll have to wait and see if IE Pony can clinch that race win today, or if he maybe has challenges from otherwhere, like from Collis, for example.
Yeah, absolutely. IE Pony has been he's been threatening to win throughout this season, as you can see, by the fact that he's managed 3 third places and also a second place as well. But he's never quite got there, at least not yet. And so I'm looking forward. I think he will get a win at some point, definitely before this season's over. He's got plenty of races left to do it, of course. But it's just a matter of when, I think. And today would be a good day to do it. It would still leave him second rather than first in the championship, because Ramdrop has 3 wins to his name, and therefore would still be above IE Pony, even if he did win this race. But regardless of that, I think it would be... It's the 25-point mark behind really got to give them that little extra bit of inspiration, I feel.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. It looks like everybody in the lobby is getting ready. Yeah, I'm on double duties today because I also need to have an eye on coordinating the split, and apparently someone didn't get an invite and just got it sorted out. So yeah, looks like we're good to go.
Yeah, indeed. One thing to note about the standings that you see on the screen is I believe Julian will be expunged from the standings soon. I think he's actually moving to a reserve driver role, as he's no longer going to be able to participate regularly in the races, as we see from the fact that he did not start either of the previous 2 races. So that's very unfortunate to see that, and we've really seen a lot of our front-running drivers from early in the season drop out, and basically it's just Ramdrop and IE Pony remaining from those, which does give a good chance for the likes of Duppy and Collis, who joined later, to really make a charge up the table and really try and cement a good finishing place come the end of the season.
Oh, and that's interesting, because the only driver that was missing for tonight, obviously I need to have an eye on that, was Duppy, because I couldn't find him online, and now I get a message, when's the lobby going up? Well, it already started. Yeah, I need my invite. I'll sort that out, give me a second, I'll be right back.
Hopefully we will get Duppy into the lobby. I'm unsure if that means we'll have to remake this lobby or whether we'll end up using the same lobby once again. Let me just quickly turn up the sound, as we are now into the circuit pool Ricard, and as you can see it seems to be bone dry at the moment. There's a little bit of haze towards the edge there where you just see the little silhouette of a mountain in the very top left hand corner of the screen, but I don't think that's enough to imply that it's going to be raining anytime soon. Everyone's still in the pits at the moment, though I think I see, yeah, that is a Williams heading out, so that will be either IE Pony or Ian Bastien. See which one it is. It is indeed Ian who's going to be the very first out on track here. Ian having a pretty mixed season so far, currently down in 7th in the championship standings once you remove Julian from the equation. So with 33 points, which he shares with Adidas Tracksuit, who also has 33 points as well. So he'll be looking for a slightly more... he'll be looking for a clean race above anything else, because I think he's had quite a lot of frustration lately with difficulties coming into contact with people and not really being able to finish races, at least not fully intact. So he'll be looking for a clean race above anything else, I would imagine. Just going to see real quick how the process of getting Duppy back in here is going. Slightly unsure right now. Looks like several other people are coming out on track though. Oh, and one person who's coming out on track, who I should note is Lasse, I believe. I'd imagine that's how that's pronounced. Duppy has joined this session, so it might be the case that he's not going to be able to participate in qualifying, but should be able to line up at the back of the grid for the race, so that's good to see, as we will have 14 drivers rather than 13. Slightly lower numbers than we would usually like to bring you, but of course that is beyond our control. As I was saying, Lasse, who's one of the new drivers in this league, he's another Finnish driver, making up, I think, 5 or 6 of the Finnish cohort we have now in this league, and he will be driving in the Haas. He's been promoted from Formula 4 to Formula 3, so I'm excited to see how he does in that number 19, or number 99 rather, Haas.
And I am back, and it seems that Duppy made it into the session.
Yeah, he's in the session, won't be taking part in qualifying, but should be here for the race.
Alright. Yeah, because that's what I told him when we were already a few minutes late with starting the lobby, and he still missed it. So punctuality is important, so that means he will obviously miss out in qualifying. But I've got a nice bit of information. We're actually going to have a wet to maybe dry race.
Ooh, oh, that's lovely, because we've not had that much to do with wet weather so far, so I'm rather looking forward to that one. Just a moment ago, so Ian actually locks up completely and goes way wide at turn 3 here. He's going to have to abort this lap. He was the first one to set a lap, or to start setting a lap. And then, interestingly, we saw one of the features of this track, which is the very peculiar pit exit, which leads you right onto where the racing line is for turn 1. And we saw Assassin having to dive off the road, and I think Ian actually lifted off. Certainly, he was very distracted by the Sauber driver coming out of the pits ahead of him. And that wasn't Assassin's fault. It just happens to be the way the track layout is. So that's going to be rather difficult for the drivers to navigate around.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be a hindrance, and I hope we don't have any major issues because of that. But that's unfortunately just the way the pit exit is here, as the first few people now start their first flying laps. Collis, for example, who won the last race, now crossing this start-finish line to go on his first flying run. He is on a set of super softs, interestingly enough. And we can see quite a few drivers actually using the medium compound here. We have the ultra softs, the super softs, and the softs available. And Tom actually at the moment is on soft tires, interestingly enough. But yeah, I'd say the rest is about 50-50, who's on super softs and who's on ultra softs. So there might be a bit of a gambling going around here. I don't know why, to be fair enough, because if we indeed have a wet start to the race, as my information is, it doesn't really matter what tire you qualify on. You just want to be as fast as possible.
Yeah, absolutely. And speaking of being as fast as possible, Corny does come across the line and sets the first purple time of the session, a 1:29.585 on the Supersoft tyres. I imagine the pole time will probably be about a second below that, around a 1:28.6 or maybe a 1:28.5. I think the very best we can hope for, probably a 1:28.3. We'll see if that does indeed come to pass or not. Several other drivers coming across the line. Lasse with his first lap, first recorded lap in the league, comes across the line with a 1:29.6, and Lemon actually moves himself up to the top on the ultra soft tyres with a 1:29.3.
Yeah, so at the moment, apart from Lemon, most of the guys that had a reasonable time, they qualified on super soft, or set their lap on super softs, rather. Enigma, yeah, he did do a lap on ultra softs, but there must have been some sort of mistake in there, because that is a very slow lap. To be fair, Lasse now in third with 1:29.6, and yeah, we'll have to wait and see. I'm still intrigued that so many people are going out on super softs, probably maybe just to get a feel for the track conditions, I suppose, because there's really no point in qualifying on harder compound if we have that wet start to the race.
Yeah, absolutely. I think what it will be is people won't have enough ultra-soft tyres to last for all the laps they're planning on being able to do in the qualifying session, and therefore, to get their eye in, they are going to be starting with a super soft lap, as we see Assassin not actually set a lap time and head straight back into the pits, as Ian was forced to do as well. Of course, there is the factor that you can probably set multiple times in a row on the super soft tyres as well, which can help you to build a bit of momentum into the session as well, although we do see Tom, who was on the soft tyres, having come back into the pits, so evidently he was not interested in setting any more than one lap on those tyres.
Yeah, interestingly enough, one guy we have to talk about is Martin G1337, who's currently sitting in a second position. He's had a bit of connection issues throughout the season, especially last round, where he couldn't really participate, always got thrown out of the lobby due to his connection, and in the end couldn't do qualifying and couldn't start the race. So I already got a message from him today saying hopefully it works today, so that wasn't very optimistic, to be fair, but at the moment it seems like he's doing fine.
Yeah, absolutely, and he has actually put the second fastest lap time we've seen so far in with a 1:29.382, only 400ths off of Lemon's time, and Corny also popped himself up into third. Interestingly, Collis behind his new teammate. Of course, there was only one lap set, but I believe they were on the same compound tyres for that lap, so let me just check that. Yeah, they were both on super soft tyres, so it's interesting that Collis not having the upper hand in that battle between him and his new teammate quite yet.
Well, we'll have to wait and see. It's obviously only the first round, banker times, as we like to say. So we'll have to wait and see. Oh, that's two Ferraris going out at the same time. That was an interesting scene. Yeah, we'll have to wait and see when it comes down to the line at the end of the session, who can be the fastest of the two Haas drivers, who also both didn't start the season. Remember, we started with Paschek and Miller in Australia, and now we have two completely different drivers in those Haas cars.
Yeah, we had an incredibly strong lineup, as you said, Paschek and Miller. A very, very strong start to the season for the Haas team, but then, of course, they both dropped out of the league for one reason or another. Muller was actually promoted to F2 and Paschek had to drop out for personal reasons. And now it seems like the Haas seems to be a very competitive team here, as both Collis and now Lasse seems like with that sort of time. I mean, obviously it's very early days to say this, but I think there's some sort of sense that he's going to be quite good as well. So and Collis, of course, as we've seen with his win last time out, very, very fast driver indeed. So the Haas team seems to have rather good fortune with their drivers in PC F3 as Ian comes towards the line now. Doesn't actually manage to set that lap time. That was cancelled for some reason or another. I did see him having another excursion off track before, but he did seem to be gunning it on that lap, so that's interesting. So that makes me think that he actually cut the corner towards the end of the lap.
Yeah, it seems so, although now he's out of ERS deployment. He doesn't have any fuel left, unfortunately, so you have to sorry, excuse me, come back into the pits. Otherwise, I think he would have been good to go for another run, but yeah, it's very easy. It's very easy to cut or extend here, obviously, because everything left and right of the track is paved. So you'll get done for that very quickly with the detection system that we have.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm both surprised and quite impressed that we only have two drivers who failed to set a lap time so far. I was expecting quite a few to be struggling to set any sort of lap time with the track limits issues that people tend to have around this track. However, it's a testament to the quality of the drivers that 11 of them have managed to set a lap time which was not considered to be illegal by the game's system. Currently on board with Lemon, our provisional pole sitter, as he heads down the Mistral straight, braking almost entirely on the curbing there on the right-hand side, taking a lot of curb around here as well. Seems to take that particular section pretty nicely, and onto the second half of the Mistral now, heading towards the very, very fast, basically flat-out right-hander. In fact, it is a flat-out right-hander. And then small little flat-out zone before tightening. This corner tightens as you go around. It's a very nice corner, actually, I find. Seems to take it pretty well, taking pretty much the maximum speed he could around there.
Yeah, I'm just having a look at the Assassin's lap, because he hasn't set a time yet, as I think he's now in turns 13. So he's at the end of the lap, so we'll have to wait and see what time Assassin can set. His teammate currently with the benchmark of 1:30.3, not the fastest times to be fair, so it should be doable as Lemon sets a new fastest lap with a 1:29.1, so a few tenths of improvement, and Assassin goes P6 with 1:29.8.
Not a bad lap from the Sauber driver, although I think that's one of the slower lap times we've seen on the ultra soft tyres. I think the others are set that were around that sort of time were set on the super soft tyres. Enigma popped himself up into P3. He was the one driver who was definitely slower on the ultra soft tyres. We saw a slightly peculiar first lap from him in the 1:30s, and he's able to improve on that. And there is Lasse, very, very, absolutely blowing everyone out the water there by 6/10 of a second, almost 5/10 of a second. Lasse puts himself up into P1. Excellent lap from the new Haas driver. And there goes Collis into P2 as well, so the Haas team will be very, very pleased with this session as it's transpiring at the moment.
Yeah,
me.
Great laps. No problem. Great laps from both Haas drivers. I have to agree on that, especially Lasse's time with 1:28.6. That's really good just right off the bat. I can understand why he got promoted from F4 to F3, because that is a very, very decent pace.
Yeah, and that's sort of around what I was expecting the ultimate pole time to be, so that bodes well, in my opinion. Of course, we're not seeing anyone else getting really close to him, but he should be able to improve on that with the track improvement throughout the rest of the session, provided he's got another set of ultra soft tyres, and I believe he does. Someone else just came across the line setting another lap time. Not quite sure who that was. I think it was Aladar tracksuit, popping himself up into 7th place in the salvage, just behind his parent teammates AOR and Enigma.
Parent teammate, yes, that definitely is a new one for me, but yeah, the relationship obviously between Sauber and Ferrari or Alpha is very close. So yeah, you could say that. I wouldn't say B team, but Ferrari being the parent team, that is definitely a way to put it.
Perhaps more like an uncle, slightly less direct involvement, but regardless, I'm seeing Martin coming across, and I think this is him towards the end of a fast lap here, although that was a pretty clumsy final corner from him. We'll see if he's able to improve as he comes across the line. And he does. He actually moves himself up ahead of Lemon, up into 3rd place, but he's only jumped 1 position with that lap time.
Yeah, and we're now reaching the 5-minute mark, so people will start to prepare their final runs. Sorry. Oh. Are we both in with a cough for today, it seems?
Yeah, something going around the commentary box, evidently, as Ian now starting his 3rd attempt to set a genuine lap time here. He's the only driver remaining who's not been able to set a lap time. And what I was saying earlier about him desperately needing a clean race here, and something he'll already be wanting, that doesn't really bode too well for him if he's not able to set a single clean lap in qualifying. We'll see if this lap any better, though. Understeers wide here, and that's going to punish him round here as well. Runs off the track. Hopefully he won't be invalidated for that, because I don't think he really gained any time as he heads now on to the Mistral, going down into overtake mode on the ERS to get that extra bit of juice out of the engine. Going to be braking hard just after the 100-meter board here. Takes a significant amount of curb on the inside, but avoids the curb in the right-hander straight after, which is interesting. I'm not sure if that was intentional or just to make sure the car was settled, or whether he actually just understeered wide a little bit there. Going through the flat-out right-hander, all seems good so far. I've not seen anything that I think would mean that this lap would be invalidated, so hopefully he will be able to actually set a time. Runs a little bit wide on exit there, but hopefully that'll be alright as well. Didn't seem to gain too much time from it. And running wide again. He's had all 4 wheels off track several times throughout this lap, and he's done it again there in a part where he really didn't even need to, so he is kind of playing with fire here, considering he hasn't been able to set a lap time yet. Lemon leaving the session. That's not good news for the Force India driver. Ian will complete this lap as he heads towards the line now, and he comes across, and it is a good lap, and it's a very good lap, actually. He's up into P5, just ahead of his Williams teammate.
Yeah, decent time there. In the end, I'd have to say, yeah, obviously, I mean, there's still time. You might be able to get back and set a lap, but it's really tight. So maybe he'll have to settle with that time of a 1:29.1. But yeah, it took him 3 attempts to even set a time. So it's going to be interesting to see. Obviously, if people have difficulties setting lap times and qualifying, that might be an indicator that it will be difficult to not get any corner cutting penalties on the race afterwards. So definitely something we'll have to have an eye on.
Absolutely, yeah. No, we saw plenty of corner cutting last time out in Canada, so hopefully we'll see a bit of an improvement on that one, although I won't hold my breath, because I think this track is, if anything, even worse for corner cutting than Canada was. Currently just taking a peek at Lasser here. He's on his out lap, ready to go on to his final flying lap of the session. He's one of the earliest ones out there, I believe. Just coming around to the final corner now, and be able to see whether he's able to improve on that excellent 1:28.6 that we saw him post earlier in the session as he heads towards the line now.
Yeah, usually obviously you want to go out or as late as possible to set your time to get the best track conditions, obviously, as the track rubbers in as the session progresses. But considering he's on pole position by 3/10 at the moment, he's not really in that position of being too much under pressure, so can go nice and early and have a nice free track ahead of him. As you can see, I've got a yellow at sector 3, so that might be somebody letting someone else through, I hope.
But yeah, from the session. Maybe it was something to do with him, although I can't imagine he hit any of the walls around here. They're all pretty far away, unless he maybe hit one of the walls on pit entry. That would be interesting. It's probably the case that he just came into the pits and realised didn't have enough time to set any more flying laps, and thus has had to settle for that 1:29.192, which you mentioned he might have to do earlier.
Yeah, it looks like he ran out of time there. So unfortunate for him, but at least he did get a time in, considering his difficult start to the qualifying session. As we're now on the last minute of qualifying, 55 seconds to go, and that was a big moment of oversteer there from Lasse coming out of 10-12. So he's now in the final corner. Very tight right-handed. It's tighter than it looks on entry. So you have to be really careful as now powers across the line. Will he improve? Yes,
Ooh, wow.
128.3. Absolutely demolishing competition as Corny actually has moved up to second position with 128.8. Can someone else improve? Collins is on a flying lap as well. He's now turn 11 at the moment, so he'll be... No, I think there's actually people that's out behind him as well, so he's not going to be the last to cross the line. Enigma's retired from the session, so he won't be improving. Just having a look. Has Lemon actually reconnected? I don't think he has.
He just reconnected just now, so he's not going to have time to set another lap either, so 5th will be the best he can hope for. IE Pony comes across the line, and he only up into 6th place, so that's as good as the Williams driver will be starting. And Collis can't challenge his teammate. He's still 3.5 tenths off of Lasse's times. He comes across the line with a 128.7, and that is quite a shock.
Yeah, still a good lap from Collis there, but yeah, not good enough for his teammate at the moment. Haas front row lock up. Just saying, look, Martin G is in the final sector now, trying to improve his lap. The question is, can he get into the 128s as Tom, his teammate, actually improves on a 129 flat, would put some provisional P4 now. Can the McLaren steal that P4 back from his teammate? That is the question, as it now opens the DRS on the start finish straight, and yes, he can with a 128.8. Goes about 2 tenths faster than Tom, his teammate in the other McLaren. And just having a look, there's somebody else on a flying lap.
Adidas tracksuit, just coming into the final section now. He's heading into the final corner. Got to get it turned in nicely. Actually, that's a better final corner than the sort of ones I've been seeing from other drivers here as he comes up towards the line. Currently down in 10th place, and he's not able to get any higher. He actually slightly slower on that lap. Skatey may well be on a lap. No, he's backed out. IE Pony, I did see, was going for another one with the his second flying lap in a row. So this is going to be pretty tough for the Williams driver. Of course, the wet start means he can go for this, and he comes across the line, and it's not any faster. The tyres too overheated. He's down on his time by about 1/10 of a second. And I think that is all we're going to have for qualifying.
Yeah, so front row lockout from Lasse and Collis for the Haas team. Corny with a good 3rd place just behind Collis there. Martin G and Tom 97H, P4 and 5. Good qualifying result for McLaren as well. And yeah, qualifying over, and it's definitely going to be an interesting race considering it's going to be raining.
Yeah, absolutely. And that really can turn things upside down, because at the moment what we'd be seeing is potential domination from the Haas pairing, and in particular Lasse, with that absolutely blowing everyone else out the water. 3.5 tenths down to the next driver, and then 7 tenths down to 6th place. That's pretty insane, to be honest. The very, very good lap time from the brand new Finnish driver in our league. But the fact that it's wet will, of course, turn everything on its head, and perhaps he's not such a good wet driver. We'll have to see. Could make the race a lot more interesting.
Yeah, obviously we also don't know how the setups from every driver are, so Lasse might be a bit more towards a dry setup, obviously with that good qualifying, but Collis might have a bit more of a wet setup to be better in the race, so we'll have to wait and see.
Absolutely, as we're going to be just loading into the session. You get a nice view of the little basin that the Circuit Paul Ricard is in. It's a very nice location, I think, as we are seeing it absolutely tipping down here. Should be intermediate conditions. Doesn't quite look like full wets to me.
Oh, interesting thing I just noticed in the game. It's actually nice to see that the people there up in the paddock club are actually now wearing raincoats instead of their normal attire that they usually wear. So that's an interesting thing I didn't notice before in the game. Great to see the love to detail from the Codemasters team, who obviously provide us with the F1 game franchise. As everybody's now getting ready on the grid, maybe a few setup changes as far as they're allowed, obviously due to Park Ferme strategy and tyres. I mean, tyres maybe not too much. It's probably going to be fairly easy, unless it's right between inters and wets. So we'll have to wait and see. But it looks like everybody is ready now, and we're going to go on to the formation lap.
Yeah, just probably quite a lot of setup changes going on there. I'm not entirely sure everyone managed to get everything done. There were some people who weren't readying up as the timer ticked down, but they could have, of course, just been waiting to make sure they got every little last drop out of it. Of course, you tend to want to run lighter fuel loads when it's raining, so that's one of the changes the drivers were having to make, because you get better traction coming out of corners with leaner fuel mixes than you would with the richer end of the scale. And similarly, you might be seeing some interesting battery usage as drivers seek to minimize wheel spin and therefore will be using very low ERS modes out of certain corners where traction is essential. Everyone just coming around the lap now as looks, yeah, it's not too wet, I don't think. This isn't going to be too disastrously difficult for the drivers. I mean, it's wet enough for the intermediates, obviously, but oh, Lemon being disqualified somehow without anyone else being disqualified. Not quite sure how that works. Usually if two cars hit each other, then both are disqualified, but he's managed to find a way to get himself disqualified solo.
Yeah, interconditioned at the moment. And talking about fuel, I've got something interesting I've noticed. Assassin and Duppy are running with about, let's say, plus half a lap to a lap. The rest is running somewhere between 2 and 3 laps plus fuel, actually. And JSR actually underfueled his car by a lap. So he has about 3 to 4 laps less fuel on his car than everybody else. So that's going to be interesting for the Renault driver.
Yeah, absolutely. That tells me that he thinks the rain's going to go on for longer than anyone else thinks the rain's going to go on for. And that probably means that he's also got a wet setup on. If he has that sort of mentality going into this race, I'd be very surprised if he didn't set his qualifying time, which was only fast enough for P11, which is not the sort of thing we've been seeing. Of course, last time out in Canada, he qualified second on the grid. So that might explain a slight lack of pace there for him if he was indeed running with the wet part of the race in mind. You see Lemon up ahead there waiting on the grid. One thing to note is Duppy is in a Mercedes for this race because he joined late. He wasn't able to select his car. Of course, he is actually a Red Bull driver, and any points he scores this race will, of course, go to the Red Bull team.
Yeah, that is absolutely correct. As we can see now, the drive is lying onto the grid very nicely, and since there's 14 drivers, that should be done fairly quickly as the lights go on for the French Grand Prix here at season 16 of AOR. We have 5 red lights, and the lights are out, and looks like it's a good start from the McLarens and from Lemon there. Lass and Collis looks like they're going to be battling into turn 1 as they head down to the left-hander. Who's going to come out on top? And it looks like Collis is actually on the inside now, pushes his teammate a little bit wide. Martin G behind, trying to get into the battle. Corny with a horrendous start. They drop down to P5, and the battle is still on for the lead as now Martin G and Lasse are fighting for second position. And that was actually Lemon and I think Duppy. No,
IE Pony's round.
Yeah, they went round. There was some sort of contact there coming into the corner. Unfortunately, I couldn't see why, but it looked like they just ran out of space.
Yeah, absolutely. And now we're seeing Martin G, the 2 McLarens, and Lasse going 3 wide on the Mistral straight here. Looks like Tom 97 HD has got ahead, but he has got the outside line for the corner, so he's not going to be able to take the inside there. And his McLaren teammate breaks late, and Tom just about holds it around the outside. Martin bumps into the back of his teammate. I didn't see any front wing damage coming out from him, though, and Lasse loses out there down into 4th place. And this is very, very good news for Collis indeed, as he looks to stretch his legs at the front now, as we saw him do in Canada. The 2 McLarens still battling, but Tom 97 HD still able to hold on to that position. But no, he's actually spun round. He's spun out all on his own around that corner, which is usually flat out. He's managed to hold the spin. It was only a half spin in the end, but he's dropped all the way down to 6th position from 2nd. It was looking like a very good start from both of the McLaren drivers until that happened. They were rockets off the grid.
Yeah, Tom's start not so good as you might have hoped. Lasse also dropped 2 positions, so not the optimal start from him. And now it looks like it's Martin G who's going to be hunting down, or trying to hunt down Collis, who's had an exceptional start here at the start of the race, clawed away that first position from his teammate, and obviously now after the first lap he's the first one to cross the line, so he sets the first fastest lap of the race.
Yeah, indeed, as Skatey and JSR seem to be trading places back there. Looks like JSR's actually had to come into the pits. I would imagine that's for some sort of front wing damage. Definitely not the time to be changing tyres. Duppy having a similar thing. He managed to drop his way. He found his way up ahead of several drivers, and Martin G actually running wide here. This could be an opportunity for Lassie as we cut back to the action up ahead right now. Martin having to go very, very defensive here, and this could compromise his line onto the straight, but Lasse tried to hang it around the outside, and that's compromised him in turn, as Corny now looking to go up the inside, skating, getting himself a 5-second stop-go penalty for corner cutting. That's pretty harsh, as Martin seems to have cleared these two drivers now. Now it's going to be a battle between Lasse and Corny over third position right now, and Ian looks like he's probably getting involved as well. He's on the inside, the Williams driver, so that could be advantageous for him. Surely he's going to have to brake a little bit earlier, but no, it's actually between him and Corny who are later on the brakes, but Lasse tries to get a switch back on him, but is not going to be able to do it. There's simply not enough space in that chicane to make that move work, and an excellent job by Ian as he moves his Williams up into third place now, and Tom once again trying to capitalize on this as he's trying to make up for the mistake he made earlier. Corny very close to the back of Ian once again, and Tom likewise very, very close to the back of the Haas in front of him. Ian runs very, very wide, but Corny running wide with him as well, pushing perhaps the Williams driver out wide a little bit, and it looks like the Mercedes is going to take the advantage, but no, Ian back up the inside. He has to brake a little bit earlier there. Two sets of side-by-side here. This is absolute crazy action here for third place right now, and there's a little bit of a twitch there for the Williams drivers. He gets very, very close. They've been side-by-side for so long. Surely Ian is going to have the advantage here, and it looks like he has actually. Corny been pushed wide, tries to make a bit of a dive down into the final corner up the inside of Lasse, who is trying to in turn take advantage of the fact that Corny had to run wide, and it is Lasse that wins that one out in the end. Corny falling back down into 5th position. Excellent driving from Ian in particular.
Yeah, very good start from the Williams driver, already up by 5 positions from where he started, and all that battling actually brought Tom back into that equation as he had lost so much time after his half spin, and now he's back in the fight, and Adidas Tracksuit and AOR Enigma behind are also trying to have a look if they can move up a few positions. And you can see Lasse still really putting Ian under pressure there. I mean, this is a battle for the final step on the podium. There's still a long way to go, but if we can make a move early in the race, obviously you're going to try and do so. And yeah, we can see Lasse still hanging on. It's not optimal start for him, but at the moment he's trying to claw his way back to the front, as now Ian is up next. But looks like he's not going to be near enough on the Mistral straight here, and has to settle for that 4th position. Oh, that is Corny running very wide there, and Tom really trying to profit from that as he swoops past him in the chicane. That was a big driving mistake there from the Mercedes driver. Now he's dropped down to P6. He's already 3 positions down from where he started, and that is not the way you want to start a race.
Yeah, absolutely. That was a nice little bit of driving from Tom there. He showed his nose to the McLaren ahead of him of Corny and just made Corny make that mistake. He thought that Tom was going to be moving up the inside, and so Corny tried to run around the outside and brake later than he needed to, outbraked himself, and therefore Tom was able to capitalize. Good stuff from the McLaren driver. Interestingly, Ian a lot braver than Lasse around the long right-hander which leads onto the Mistral straight, and that's why he managed to build up such a gap to the Haas driver onto the straight, and therefore Lasse wasn't able to make a move on him, because Ian just seemed to use much more of the track and seemed to get his foot down a lot earlier into that particular part of the track. So that was very good from him, and he seems just more confident than some of the other drivers right now.
Yeah, it looks like he's feeling really comfortable in those wet conditions. Obviously, question could be what is the situation setup wise, because he did start down the order a little bit, so not the optimal qualifying, but it can be possible. Obviously, it's possible that he is on a full wet setup, so really profiting from the conditions now, and obviously the point where you can really see that is under acceleration and when hitting the brakes, and that is exactly where Ian is very strong at the moment.
Yeah, and once again, he's got a much better run than Lasse behind onto the Mistral straight, and he's going to be just fine holding on to that 3rd position right now. Martin, interestingly, has bolted away from the battling behind him. Of course, the intensity of the battle behind really would have given him a significant advantage, as other drivers were really hindering each other's lap time significantly. Collis even further ahead at the front, 2.7 seconds already, and this is already looking rather reminiscent of Canada, but in the wet. So now we can see that Collis, not only is he very, very solid in the dry and just able to pump out those lap times like Vettel used to do when back in the Red Bull days, just able to build that gap up at the front. He similarly seems to be able to do a similar thing in the wet conditions as well. And one thing you were mentioning about the wet setups, of course, anyone who is on a wet setup, it's likely that the second half of this race will actually be dry. It is supposed to dry up, I believe, towards the end of the race, and therefore at that point it will once again come back to the drivers who have their qualifying, their dry setups on, and hopefully they might be able to make a bit of a charge towards the end of the race.
Yeah, we're definitely expecting a big shift in track conditions throughout the race, and that could mean a big shift in driver and car pace. So we'll have to wait and see and have an eye out on that. But as you can see, that fighting group there, P3 onwards, they've yeah, kind of fallen in a single file row here, and not too much battling now going on after that very chaotic start. I think everybody's trying to find their rhythm and settle in into the race nicely. As we can see Ian running a little bit wide here in the right-hander, and not the best of exits onto the Mistral straight, but it seems like he probably will still have enough of a gap behind to stay ahead. Obviously, due to the intermediate conditions, there will be no DRS available unless it dries out later on. Oh, that was a big slide there coming into the corner.
Yeah, so, I really thought he was gone, but held it well.
Yeah, definitely a good showing of driving skill there. As we can see now, Lasse much closer to Ian here, and he might be able to make an attack into turn 11, but nope. As we can see, Ian is much braver through turn 10. So, as I say that, he runs wide in turn 11, and now Lasse's back up his gearbox there, as behind Connie and Tom 97 actually now going side by side, battling for P5. Tom is now on the inside, brakes a bit later than the Mercedes, and moves ahead into the 5th position, and a good clean overtaking maneuver there, and good racing from both drivers.
Yeah, Tom ran very wide, just like Ian did, but even wider, actually, in fact, and that was what gave Corny the opportunity to try and move up the inside, but Tom did a very, very good job, actually, of regaining his composure and just holding that position, so he does regain his 5th position, which he briefly lost to Corny. Interestingly, further down the field, I was noticing, just on board with IE Pony a little bit, seemed very, very frustrated behind Lemon, and of course those two, we did see them coming together on the opening lap, and they would have been both hoping for a very good result. IE Pony in particular, as we mentioned him in the frame for the win today, and it's really not turning out that way at all after the calamity on the opening lap, and he's now stuck behind the Force India driver, who he's been very, very close behind throughout this race so far, as now once again we are seeing the battling 3rd, 4th, 5th and 6th place drivers heading onto the straight, but once again they're too far away from each other to really make any sort of move. Corny's pretty close to the back of Tom 97 HD, and he's up into hot lap mode, interestingly, rather than overtake mode on the straight, which is a little bit peculiar, I would say. I'm not quite sure what would make him feel the need to do that, rather than go into the overtake mode, which does give you more speed in 7th and 8th gears. But he wasn't able to make a move on Tom this lap.
Yeah, and I'm just having a look at the track condition, and I have the feeling that the rain is not quite as heavy as it was at the start of the race, as Tom runs really wide in turn 10, I think that was, and Corny again slipped through the inside, so those two are definitely not done with battling for P5, and basically driver mistake after driver mistake, but in taking turns, so whoever makes a small mistake has to concede the position and back and forth, so we'll have to wait and see how they settle for that P5.
Yeah, that looked like exactly the same thing that happened to Tom on the last lap, but this time Corny was closer and they were therefore able to take advantage. What I did just see is IE Pony well off track and facing the wrong way. He's managed to recover as Tom actually into the pits right now, but as I was saying about IE Pony, I did mention he seemed to be getting a bit frustrated behind Lemon, and I think that was the result of that frustration here. Interestingly, Tom coming into the pits for another set of intermediate tyres, so it's not time for dries yet, so he seems to think, at least, that this is going to be a 2 stints on the intermediates for everyone, so that's interesting that he's the first to blink on that one.
Yeah, tyre wear seems to be fairly harsh on the intermediate tyres around here. We have only done 7 laps so far, and his tyre wear was at 50%, so yeah, it's definitely going to be harsh on the tyre, so depending on when the track starts to dry out, we might see a couple of stints on the intermediates actually, and just think about it, we only have 4 sets, so yeah, if he stops every 7 laps, that's just going to be enough to get through with the inters.
And what I was saying earlier about Collis building up a lead at the front has actually come down by about half a second. Martin G closing up to him, but we did just see him picking up a 3-second time penalty, so even if he does get ahead of him, he's going to have to build a significant gap ahead of the Haas driver for it to really count. And at the moment, it's not looking like he's reeling him in with enough pace to make that sort of thing happen. Are there any drivers at the moment who you think might be able to pull off only one set of intermediates? Anyone whose tyre wear is looking particularly rosy right now?
I'm just having a look. Someone like Lemon, actually, interestingly enough, might be one of those guys, because he's only on 39% tire wear, but obviously he's fighting with that bit of front wing damage he got from the first lap. So we'll have to wait and see, but
Oh, just lost you there for a moment. Yeah, interesting that Lemon would be the one with the best tyre wear, considering
stop less than everybody else, depending on how far he stretches out that stint and takes the pain of being slow on worn tires.
Okay, sorry, I lost you there for a moment, but we are back in action now, I believe. I think there was just a bit of lag in the commentary box, but all fine now, as Skatey right now nailed to the back of Lemon. And it's interesting that you said that Lemon had the best tyre wear pretty much of anyone, apart from those who have stopped already, of course, because he actually went for a spin earlier, which usually wears the tyres out pretty significantly, and also, as you said, dealing with front wing damage tends to lead to increased tyre wear as well, so it's very impressive for him that he's able to not have that affect his race in any significant way in terms of tyre wear, at least.
Yeah, interestingly enough, Corny actually is the one with the most tyre wear, and Tom97 has crashed.
Ooh.
He has crashed. Unfortunately, I can't see where, but he's out of the race. I'm just trying to look from JSR behind, but unfortunately JSR has 20 seconds of disadvantage to Tom ahead, but I'm just having a look. Tom crashed on the exit onto the Mistral Straight, left into the wall. I haven't seen him crash there, actually, in any other race. So, yeah, he must have really lost it on the exit curb there. So, very unfortunate for him. It looks like he might have been in a good position for some decent points, considering he was doing the undercut. But, yeah, that unfortunately is race over for him. And talking about good position, Collis, our race leader, is now into the pits.
Yeah, absolutely. Seems like a pretty standard pit stop for the Haas driver. He does go on to another set of intermediate tyres, and that does seem like it's going to be what everyone's having to do. The rain not showing any signs of abating at the moment. And as you said, Tom97HD, considering he was having to go for the undercut, that may well have been playing on his mind, and he may well have been pushing a little harder than perhaps he should have been, with the idea that he could try and make the undercut. He wanted to maximise the undercut, I suspect, and therefore pushed a little bit too hard after coming out of the pits, and that was why we ended up seeing him buried in the wall. It's very interesting that he was able to crash there of all places. Very, very strange indeed, as we're seeing Collis trying to navigate, not really back markers, but trying to take 8th place back off of Lemon here, and he does manage to nose his way up inside the Force India driver and move up into 8th place. We saw IE Pony also pitting, and he's come out down in last place.
Yeah, it's interesting that some of the drivers at the top are still out there on their now heavily used set. Corny on 70% and the rest of them on 60% tyre wear. So they're absolutely feeling the pain now of those worn tyres. And I can't imagine that you want to stretch them any more than they have now. So I'm expecting for them to come into the pits at the end of this lap. Otherwise, I'm really questioning their strategy, to be fair.
Yeah, I mean, like, trying to extend the tyre stints now would mean that if you're worried that it's going to be raining until very, very late in the race, then you could be trying to make sure you don't have to make 3 stints on the intermediate tyres. But having said that, everyone does indeed seem to be coming in the pits as the top 4 drivers all make their way into the pit lane. Adidas Tracksuit doesn't. He stays out, so he takes the race lead for now. Up 9 places from where he started, but of course that's because he hasn't pitted, as we see Skatey also peeling off into the pits there as Collis moves on up and past everyone else as he once again regains his lead, but interestingly not further ahead of Martin G than before. Actually, Martin G's managed to somehow get a bit of an overcut on the Haas driver.
Which is very interesting. I would have expected that the undercut is fairly strong around here, considering the very harsh tyre conditions, but yeah, it looks like Martin G had a better in or out lap, and has actually now gained a second towards Collis, so that is very interesting.
Yeah, the rest of the field seems pretty similar to how it was. Lemon having stayed out, as you mentioned, he didn't have such bad tyre wear, and now Lasser stuck behind him. He needs to try and get past the Force India driver as soon as he can, but he gets a bit of a swapper on exit there onto the Mistral Straight. Didn't quite get so much of a problem as Tom did, but that was, I imagine, a similar sort of scenario to what befell the McLaren driver, as Lasset does close in under braking towards Le Mans. He's going to try and get the better exit here, and it looks like he should be able to take the Force India driver as soon as possible. Interestingly, Lemon feeling the need to defend his position. We saw him actually trying to have a go earlier back up the inside of Collis, but Lemon can't quite hold on the inside, and that's a very, very good move from Lasser as he takes away the apex from the Force India driver. Corny now finding himself with a similar conundrum as the one Lasser was just facing, and he's right behind Lemon, and he actually makes a big dive up the inside there, but he keeps it controlled nicely, and actually that's very, very good from the McLaren, Mercedes driver, sorry, because he would not have wanted to spend a whole sector stuck behind Lemon.
Yeah, good racing tactics there. He faked to the outside, so Lemon said, told himself, yeah, I'm not going to get overtaken on the outside again, moved to the outside, and then Corny obviously dove up the inside there, so yeah, good move there, faking to the outside and then going to the inside, a clean overtake and good racing.
Indeed, as now down towards the back of the field, there was a pretty intense moment of fighting there between IE Pony, JSR and RR Assassin. IE Pony having only just pitted, while whereas JSR and no, Assassin's only pitted recently as well, but JSR had to pit much earlier in the race, so IE Pony having the fresher tyres, able to get past first the Sauber driver and then the Renault driver as well, and moves himself up into 10th place at the moment as Duppy comes through the pits once again. Collis making a move on Enigma further up here very early on the Mistral Straight, actually, so he's had a much better exit than the Ferrari driver. Enigma also still yet to pit, I believe, and Martin G now right behind Enigma, who's right behind Collis, so that's incredible stuff from the McLaren driver, really reeling in the leader.
Yeah, I was just having a look, because it said Ian overtook Lemon, but I was wondering, because they weren't really close, but Ian really messed up the middle sector there, so he slowed down massively and let Lemon back through, and he'll have to try again there.
Ooh, very, very late on the brakes here into the long right-hander from Ian as well. Just about holds onto it, but that was quite a scary moment there. I thought he was just going to go straight on, but he's managed to hold it nicely. A bit of a twitch there mid-corner from Lemon, and that will give the Williams driver a pretty significant sniff there of a bit of blood in the water ahead of him, as Lemon is a bit of a sitting duck right now on much older tyres than everyone else, and with that little bit of front wing damage you mentioned. AOR Tracksuit has come into the pits as Martin G sets the fastest lap of the race and is now only half a second behind the race leader, who has once again become the actual race leader as well. Lemon still not into the pits though, and that'll be much to Ian's dismay as both AOR Tracksuit and Enigma come into the pits, and now it's just Lemon left to start his second intermediate stint.
Yeah, he's really in a good shot to make the one-stop work. At the moment he's at 65% wear, so if he can do this lap and the lap after, I think he should be in a good position to do a one-stop in case it doesn't dry up quickly enough towards the end of the race and we go to the end on intermediates. So we'll have to wait and see and have an eye out on that. That could move him up quite a few positions. I'm just having a look. Looks like Martin G is not close enough to Collis yet, but we have seen that it's possible to overtake at the end of the second part of the Mistral State. But although Martin G had a much better entry into the corner, it looks like Collis had the better exit, has now come down to turn 10, which is very tricky. We can see the lifting off to about half throttle there, just to navigate that corner, and in the dry it's completely flat, so that's a whole new challenge of its own in the wet. You can see different lines through here. It's possible to do so. There's no distinct fastest line in all of these corners, which makes it very interesting to see how the different driver styles are, but at the moment looks like Collis can hold on, but the question is for how long.
He's under pretty significant pressure right now, as I think it might be a problem for Ian, as there's yellow flags and now he has Tracksuit's made his way past him, and he was just behind Lemon a moment ago, and now what was looking like an excellent race for Ian seems to be going rather quickly downhill, and that's been a bit of a trend for him lately. He's had decent starts to the races, but they've gone downhill at some point or another, and this time it seems to have happened again. I don't know if there was any contact with Lemon or whether he just went round on his own, but either way, rather unfortunate for the Dutchman in the Williams, although he still is only down in 7th place, so it's not all that bad for him after all.
Yeah, and again, Martin G is now really close to Collis. It's important for him to string up these couple of corners here to get a good exit onto the straight. You can see a bit wide there on the curve, and yeah, we'll have to see But again, Collis seems to have a bit better exit. You can see Martin G's car very unstable, settled. Obviously, the dirt here is not really helping him in the corners. It's nice to have that slipstream on the straight, though, and again, you can see how aggressive he goes into chicane, actually up the inside there with a surprise move. Collis did not see that one coming, that is for sure. It looks like he gets a better exit. It's now going to be a drag race down to turn 10. It's going to be Martin G on the inside. He moves to the outside, takes the air off Collis's nose there to effective dirty air. And Martin G takes the lead of the French Grand Prix here on lap 13. The exceptional move, absolute late move, Ricardo-esque there up the inside of the chicane. And Collis did not see that coming whatsoever.
Yeah, no, I really could not. I did not think there was going to be any move anytime soon between Martin G and Collis. It looked like Collis had it pretty under control out ahead, but Martin G with an excellent surprise maneuver as he moves himself up into first place. Great stuff from the McLaren driver. This is only his second race in F3 that he's started, so very good stuff for him, and he's looking on track for a win right now as we speak, because likely he's going to be able to draw away from Collis, who he was reeling in pretty significantly beforehand. Lasser doesn't seem to have any answer for the pace of Collis and Martin G up front right now, which does indicate that perhaps we are right suspecting that he had a bit of a dry setup on rather than a more wet setup for the race. Corny still holding on pretty decently to him, only 2 seconds behind the Haas driver down in fourth, and then a big gap down to the one stopping Lemon. It'll be interesting to see in comparison to IE Pony's pace where Lemon ends up, because that will be a good indicator of how effective his strategy has been, and Ian gets himself a 3-second time penalty.
Yeah, it looks like I'm back. I got thrown out of Discord for whatever reason, which is great when you're trying to commentate on a race. Nevertheless, yeah, as you've said, very interesting. We'll have to wait and see. He's still out there. It's already lap 14. His tires are at 77%. They're about to blow up anytime soon, so he really has to tiptoe now on this lap. And yeah, he can pit now, and that should mean he should be fairly fine to go to the end. We'll still have to wait how the weather conditions change maybe throughout the race. At the moment, it seems like it's pretty stable intermediate weather, but yeah, it could set to dry out very soon. We're already seeing a few blue spots of sky here and there, so we'll have to wait and see as Lemon lets Adidas tracksuit go through. There's no reason in fighting that. He knows he's going to come into the pits now anyway, so just rather let him go through and not have any trouble with him.
Yeah, absolutely. And his pace has been so slow. It's just about 4 seconds to Corny ahead over the course of this lap. So I think even if he had wanted to fight that, I doubt there was anything more he could do than what he actually ended up doing, as he really is tiptoeing at a snail's pace back to the pits. 5 seconds down on Corny's lap time, more or less, now, as he will surely head into the pits. No, he does not. He's waiting for dries. That's the only possible explanation. But he's losing upwards of about 5 seconds a lap now, so that's a very, very questionable decision for the Force India driver. And Ian, once again, who we saw spin out and end up a long way behind. And actually, there's been another collision between a Williams and Lemon there. And maybe Lemon was going so slowly that Ian couldn't deal with it, but he couldn't work out how to act with the slow Force India in front of him. But his head hit into the back of him, and that looks like it can only be considered Ian's fault there. And he's actually straight lining the chicane. It looks like he's going to be ending his race in the wall. So that's a bit of an ignominious end there for Ian as he crashes out of the race down in 8th place.
Yeah, that's definitely going to have a few consequences, because that was obviously deliberately crashing out of the session. I think that's actually a race ban, if I'm not misinformed. So that is definitely not a thing what you want to do. Obviously, I can understand he's not happy with Lemon, but to be fair, look at Lemon's tires. They look like they're slicks. There's no thread on them left whatsoever. I don't know why he's stretching them so far. He's at 84% tire wear now. So yeah. I'm actually just waiting for them to blow up, to be fair. I don't know why he's stretching them so long. So yeah, it's going to be interesting. Maybe Lemon was at fault for that incident. Obviously, I couldn't really see. But I think he was just going so slow. He was barely avoidable. That's what it looked like from the commentator's perspective, at least. Well, I'd hazard to guess there's going to be a discussion about it afterwards. at least.
Yeah, absolutely. But I really don't think the blame can be placed at Lemon's door, unless you want to blame him for being out on track at all with 84% tyres. But of course, I don't think that's something you could... And he does, in fact, stay out. So he's 100% banking on getting a dry set of tyres on that car when he comes into the pits. But I think this is a bit of a suicide mission here for Lemon. It's just not coming to him quickly enough, the dryness. And actually, we see him spin out completely into turn 1 there without any tread
and he has a
on those tyres. And there you go, that's the puncture. That's what caused that one. So it has come to bite him. And, I mean, we saw it coming. Not surprising in the slightest.
Yeah, it's really a puncture for him. And, yeah, that was a strategy I wouldn't understand. Even if he had just made a regular pit stop, he'd probably only be like maximum 5 seconds down to where he was anyway, and on fresh tires. So that was not really a good strategy for him to stay out that long, and it came up and bite him in the back.
Yeah, absolutely. But now what we are seeing is actually rather large gaps between all the cars right now. The closest gap is actually the gap between first and second, with a 1.4 second gap. That's now changed as Corny slightly closed in on Lasser over the course of this lap, down to a 1.3 second gap between those two. Interestingly, JSR has been through the pits at least one more time. Let's see if he's still on the intermediate tyres, so he hasn't demanded a set of dry tyres as Lemon seemed to be doing, and Skatey and Enigma seem to be swapping positions. That must mean Enigma had a bit of a problem because they weren't particularly close to each other before that point, and in fact he's ended up 2 seconds behind his teammate, so Enigma must have had a bit of a drama somewhere around the lap, and now IE Pony's closing up to the back of him as well. But yeah, JSR 46 seconds off the back of the field at the moment. Something significantly bad has happened to his race.
It's going to be interesting to see. We've got Ian in the chat, and he said Lemon already shunted into him when they were side on side after the back straight. So there was probably also some incident that came before what we saw. Obviously, it's going to be interesting for Ian. You'll need to maybe sleep a few nights and have a rethink, because I know from Ian that he already considered pulling out of the league due to bad driving standards, and yeah, he's not going to be happy about that, that's going to be sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And Lemon now crawling back into the pits, finally making it. It's the worst possible time for him to have had that puncture happen to him right at the beginning of the lap as well. He's going to have a 5-second stop go here before they actually start working on his car, and when they finally do, it's going to be a front wing change. And worst of all for him, I feel like the thing that's going to annoy him most is the fact he's had to put another set of intermediate tyres on. So all of that was for nothing.
But did you see its used set? They were literally slicks.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, no, of course he had to come in, but he was staying out so long, and he can only be... Surely he was hoping to put dry tyres on, and the fact that he's had this puncture and yet still he's had to put another set of intermediates. So the strategy didn't even function correctly and has ruined his whole race. That's really terrible news for the Force India driver. And interestingly, Collis into the pits now for another set of intermediate tyres. So he thinks it's going to go to the end of the race surely on this set of intermediate tyres, or at least feels like everyone else is going to have to pit another time. We did see after about 7 or 8 laps on the first set of tyres people starting to pit, and now it's about 7 or 8 laps people have been running on these tyres for as well. So very interesting stuff as he comes back out in 4th place, 17 seconds off the back of Corny up ahead. And I did see Martin also picking up a second time penalty, so we've got to remember to factor that in, because I don't think Collis has any time penalties whatsoever. So that's rather good news for the Haas drive, that Martin's managed to pick himself up another penalty while under almost no pressure up ahead. So that's rather bad news for the McLaren driver.
Yeah, so at the moment we have a very interesting situation at the front. Collis effectively now again doing an undercut compared to the drivers around him, in this case Martin G. On the other hand, there's still 10 laps to go plus the rest of this one, so that might be a stretch considering tyre wear wise. It's probably not going to be in puncture territory at the end of the race, but he'll definitely be in a disadvantage pace wise and grip wise. And then on the other hand, we have to remember that Martin G has to build a 6-second gap to the cars behind to stay in the lead. So those are all factors that might throw things around quite a bit towards the end of the race.
Lasser has been really struggling over the last couple of laps with his tyres, as we see Corny getting very close to the back of him, but actually runs incredibly wide and gets a 5-second stop go penalty for exceeding track limits. I could see him challenging that one after the race. Luckily, I caught that one on the stream because that seemed incredibly harsh. You really didn't do much wrong at all, just outbraked himself and tried his hardest to stay on track and lost a whole lot of time doing it, so I think that one may well be within the possibilities of appeal there for Corny, i.e. Pony picking himself up a 3-second time penalty down towards the bottom of the field. Martin G has come into the pits, and here he is coming back out again. Where will he be in relation to Collis? There is the Haas driver, and it looks like Martin G is just going to be able to... He's going to try and defend into the corner, but luckily Collis is able to avoid him. Are they going to go side by side? Yes, they are, but Collis backs out of it just about, and Martin holds on to de facto first place for now. But here comes Collis once again trying to make a move up the inside here into 3. He's not going to be able to do so. And Martin G will hold on to the de facto race lead for the moment. But of course he does have that 6 seconds of time penalties, and that is not a 6-second gap between these two drivers at the moment.
Yeah, that was definitely very close on pit exit. Collis there with that huge amount of speed coming down the straight, but Martin could just hold it around the outside to defend that first position. But now obviously he's trying to break the slipstream for the Haas driver behind, which is somewhat working at the moment, but there's another part of a straight coming up, and Martin G might have to warm up his tyres a little bit as well, considering it usually takes a lap or so until they are perfectly up to temperature, but it seems as at the moment he can hold on to that position. But as is mentioned, he's definitely on the back foot penalty-wise.
Absolutely. I'm just wondering to what extent it's drying out. I mean, we're seeing more of the sky now than before, and fewer grey clouds up ahead. It is still coming down, though, the rain, and there is a bit of a dry line appearing on the track, but nowhere near enough at the moment for dry tyres. So if we do see dry conditions, it's going to only be for the last 4 laps of the race or so, and so I'll be interested to see whether Lassett or Corny feel the need to stay out on their tyres, or whether they'll both just come into the pits for another set of intermediates. That would be the safe option, and the option that would guarantee them getting close to 3rd or 4th position. But if they're going for the win in this race, I could see them staying out, and they have both stayed out on this lap, so we could actually see the whole thing get turned upside down, and we could have seen a massive error here from Martin G and Collis to come into the pits when no one else has, if the race does dry up in time.
To be fair, I don't see them taking their intermediates 17 laps. They're already at 65 and 74% tyre wear respectively, so that's probably not going to be an option. But what could be an option is that we don't know how fast it could dry out if the rain stops, and maybe they could just go straight onto dry compound tyres, depending on the weather. Yeah,
absolutely, and that's what I think they are definitely trying to do. That's what they're keeping in mind. We are seeing more and more of a dry line appearing on the track, but I don't think it's going to be enough for another few laps yet. And as you said, 75 and 65% tyre wear means that they don't have very many laps before they're going to be in puncture territory, just like we saw happening to Lemon in that Force India. So I don't think it's going to work for them. I think they're going to have to come into the pits, but it'll be very interesting to see. And if it does happen, it will be absolutely fascinating at the end of this race.
Yeah, we can see at the moment Martin can't really extend the gap to Collis behind, which would be very important if he wants to hold on to that, what is de facto the lead of the race at the moment. So he'll really have to work hard, but yeah, it seems like, I don't know if it's the pace or it's also the slipstream that's helping Collis to stay behind, but at the moment it's not looking very good for the McLaren driver.
No, absolutely not. And Corny has come into the pits. He served a 5-second stop go there, which I didn't realise he had. Oh no, of course, that was when he ran wide around that corner, so he's not going to be able to appeal it because it was a stop go penalty, and he's actually served it in the race. So that's really bad news for the Mercedes driver, because I don't believe that was a legitimate penalty after all. The number 52 car will be heading out of the pits now, and interestingly behind Adidas tracksuit. So if Adidas tracksuit's been a bit soft on his tyres, he might be looking to hold it until dry conditions, and we could see the Sauber driver being a bit of a factor towards the end of this race. Not quite close enough to the back of the likes of Collis and Martin G to really trouble them, but maybe troubling for the 3rd place position.
Absolutely, and just having a look at the moment, it looks like the race has settled down a bit. The only big factor at the moment obviously is the fight at the front of the field, and the weather. Apart from that, everybody's driving their own race, trying to stay in the rhythm, not making any mistakes, which is very essential in these conditions, and bring it home.
Yeah, it has stopped raining though, so will Lasse risk it? Will he stay out on those tyres? He's got a big gap down to Martin G, so he can go very, very slowly here. just to try and save his tyres for a couple of laps and then still come out ahead of the whole battle between both his teammate and the McLaren that immediately behind as well. But if he does get a puncture, then that, of course, will all go down the drain. And if it just doesn't dry up in time, that will be very problematic as well. But it will start drying from here on out. No sun, and Lasse does indeed feel the need to come into the pit. So he's not been able to hold on and will surely go on to another set of intermediate tyres here. What's it going to be as he heads down to one of the final pit boxes, and it is another set of intermediate tyres, so he's not been able to make it last. Adidas Tracksuit, I'm sure, will stay out, so once again, the fact that it stopped raining is excellent news for the Sauber driver, and he may well be able to hang on because he has slightly fresher tyres than some of the others up ahead of him as well, so surely he's probably only going to be on about 70-75% at the moment.
Adidas Tracksuit, or?
Adidas Tracksuit, yeah.
Yeah, he's at 60% at the moment.
Oh, excellent news for him.
Quite a good result considering he's on those tyres for 10 laps. So yeah, that's definitely good tyre wear from him. As I'm just having a look, looks like Assassin has a slightly bit of a knock on the front wings. So I don't know where that's from, but I think he's not gonna change that. Yeah, Assassin's onto super soft tyres.
Absolutely, he's not changing his wing, he's just coming in for the dry tyres, and that is the first one, and that bodes incredibly well for his teammate. And in fact, I don't know if they're communicating with one another or not, but this could be very, very good information for Adidas Tracksuit, who is questing for that third spot here in the race and to get onto the podium. I don't know what the situation is like regarding penalties between him and Lasse, and maybe Corny as well, who has lost a bit of time after that 5-second stop-go penalty. Just on board with Assassin now. I'm just seeing what it's looking like on track for him. It's looking pretty similar to the intermediates, maybe a little bit slower at the moment. He's not catching up to Iaponi ahead any, and he is dropping back a little bit. Lemon picking himself up another penalty at the back of the field. But it's really not looking too bad for Assassin, and within about a lap or so, I think the dry tyres are going to be the tyres to be on, and this could be excellent news, as I've already mentioned, for his teammate.
Yeah, you can really see the track improving. Martin G set a new fastest lap of the race just a lap earlier, so it might be very close to the crossover time or crossover phase, considering tires now. So yeah, Assassin can be a good benchmark for his teammate and for everyone else as Corny sets another fastest lap of the race. You can see that the track is getting faster, and yeah, Assassin actually just went through turn 10 nearly flat, so that's definitely an indicator that grip is increasing massively. And since we've still got 4 laps to go after this one, might be an idea to come in now, because if it dries up this quickly, you might start to lose 5, 6, 7, or even 10 seconds per lap at the end of the race if you're not careful. And you can see Skatey, Enigma, and Duppy all came into the pits. Skatey and Duppy onto ultra softs and Enigma onto super soft tires. Interestingly enough, DRS has now been enabled, which indicates that's probably now the crossover point. So yeah, track is in dry conditions now. Well, I just wanted to say, interestingly enough, that we have a few drivers choosing the softest and others choosing the middle compound tires. Considering there's only a few laps to go, you could obviously use the softest compound, which in theory is fastest, but in these changeable conditions, the medium compound tire has a wider working range, and it's easier to get them up to temperature.
Absolutely, yeah. I think going on to the super soft rather than the ultra soft seems like a good decision to me at the moment, as we saw Lasse making his way past Adidas Tracksuit there, and Adidas Tracksuit losing it a little bit, and we do see the top 2 drivers both come into the pit, so they're not going to try and make it to the end on their intermediates. Will Lasse try and take the risk? He could try. He's only 1 lap on those intermediates. They're going to be pretty fresh.
Oh, and Assassin is round.
Assassin round. Down towards the bottom of the field here. Oh, there's drivers all over the place here.
Yeah, Duppy got involved in that somehow as well. Assassin went for a move up the inside of Skatey there, and they collided with the tires and side pods, I'd say. Skatey got shoved out of the chicane, and Assassin just went straight round. So yeah, it looks... sorry, not Skatey, Enigma, the other Ferrari.
Yeah.
Got them mixed up for whatever reason. Yeah, but it seems like Enigma kind of feels he was at fault, because he did let them back through. So that was a very unfortunate incident, as now the top drivers are coming into the pits, and Lasse is actually staying out because he was he was so late onto those intermediate sides. He only has 18% wear, and now he has a 10-second gap to the drivers behind Martin G and Collis, who were fighting for the win. So he might try and stretch those out, but yeah, there's still 3 laps after this one, so he might really feel the pain and drop down. That is a very high-risk strategy from the Haas driver there, and we'll have to wait and see if it pays off for him.
Yeah, if he tries to stay out on these tires, if he doesn't come into the pits on this lap, this would be a massive statement of intent from the new driver in the league, the new boy, showing he's really not afraid to make these brave calls and see if he can do it. He is losing quite a lot of time to Martin G right now. He's lost about a second in that sector, so I don't think he's actually going to be able to hold on to the end, and I think it will be the right decision for him to come into the pits at this point, which is very unfortunate for him. Will he stay out? We will see. He's heading over towards the pit lane. He is going to come into the pit, so unfortunately not able to make it work. He struggles to even make the pit entry there, but he does indeed come into the pit, so that's a shame. I really would have loved to see it playing out as if he tried to hold it towards the end of the race, but unfortunately it was not to be for the second Haas driver. The first Haas driver, Collis, 1.6 seconds, now 1.5 seconds behind Martin G, up ahead. And unless he has some sort of massive drama or spin, he's going to be the winner of this race, surely, because Martin does have all of those penalties.
Yeah, another battle we need to have an eye on as well is, by the way, battle. Lasse just came out in front of Adidas Tracksuit, so that could be a battle emerging. But the issue for Adidas Tracksuit is he has a 3-second time penalty. Lasse doesn't, so yeah, you would need to overtake him and gain that 3 seconds to actually gain that podium. But Corny behind is only 2.3 seconds behind, and if Adidas Tracksuit gets held up by Lasse, he is definitely going to lose that spot to Corny as well. So it's all coming down to the line here for the Sauber driver, and he really needs to get a move on, not to get podium position from Lasse, but to get past and build a gap to Corny behind.
Yeah, and he's done a really good job so far of stretching the tyres with the intermediate stints to get himself up into podium contention in this race. But as you said, it's not looking like he's going to finish any higher than 4th. And with Corny quickly closing up to the back of these two drivers, it's not going to be any higher than 5th, I don't think, for Adidas Tracksuit, unless the others start to pick up penalties as well. In fact, the general lack of penalties across the board, of course, some people have penalties, but there are plenty of drivers without any, and I'm quite impressed with that, actually, especially after what we saw in Canada.
It's actually 3 drivers without.
3 drivers without, but okay, so fewer drivers with loads and loads. I've only seen Lemon's name really appearing too many times at the bottom.
Yeah, apart from him, it's all 1 or 2 penalties.
Yeah, so that's an improvement.
It is definitely an improvement to Canada.
But I think almost anything would have probably been an improvement to Canada, let's be honest. However, we are seeing Adidas Tracksuit close behind Lasse. He is in DRS range, but only just, and he's not going to be able to make a move anytime soon. I don't think. We are seeing the fastest laps dropping all the way now. JSR picked it up a moment ago, and now Corny has improved on that time. I think we saw Ducky, I think, was the other one who came across the line, improving on that time. But it is Corny currently holding the fastest lap of the race right now, and very fascinating race here. I'm really glad we've got to see a race that just so many different decisions for the drivers to make on the fly, and of course they don't have the advantage of having a whole pit wall with the strategies all played out in their heads and knowing with all the data and everything what the right thing to do is. And we see in those situations, we see teams still making mistakes when they do have this whole pit wall teams in real Formula 1. And so to see these drivers having to make these decisions on the fly is absolutely fascinating, and some of them have really got it pretty well spot on, like Adidas Tracksuit. He's pretty much done a masterclass of strategy in this race. He's not quite had the pace to get himself on the podium, but it's been very, very close. But other drivers, for the likes of Lasse and particularly Lemon, losing out significantly on the strategy.
Yeah, I definitely agree with the strategy part. That's just a big challenge and thrill of online league racing, to be fair. And that's what makes an online league champion, not only being fast or being consistent or keeping it clean, not getting any penalties, but also getting strategy right when you have to do it off the top of your head while driving 300 kilometers an hour down a straight or through a corner. So yeah, that definitely is the thing you have to watch out for. And Adidas Tracksuit, by the way, got a huge moment of oversteer there out of the last corner, but for some whatever reason, still manages to set the fastest lap time. So we can see track is improving, and he's still stuck behind Lasse there, and it looks like he's going to lose out to Corny, because Corny at the moment is still 2.1 seconds behind.
Yeah, interesting. That gap has grown a little bit between Adidas Tracksuit and Corny, but it's not going to grow enough unless Adidas Tracksuit is able to make the move on the Mistral straight here, and he is sticking pretty close behind the Haas driver, losing about a 10th round this corner where Dirty Air really does affect you pretty negatively, and Lasser seems to have been a bit braver on the throttle than his counterpart in the Sauber, and it looks like Adidas Tracksuit will not be close enough to make a move unless Lasser makes some pretty significant mistake into the chicane here. Brakes a lot later than the Haas driver ahead, but it's not enough as Assassin picks himself up at 3-second time penalty. I believe he's battling further down the field with Enigma at the moment. Enigma seems to have got the better of that particular fight. However, Lasser is going to be able to hold on by the look of things, and Martin G coming up into the final sector now.
Yeah, he's now into the penultimate corner. It's basically just to try and hook it up so he can get the right handle, which is the final corner here, right as he now comes across and he weaves in celebration, crosses the line at first on track, but obviously due to penalties now going to be moved down to second, and Collis is actually going to win the second race in a row. Good showing there from the Haas driver's teammate Lasser will come home in third position. Also no penalties, so very clean driving from the Haas team. Adidas Tracksuit crosses the line in P4, now gets relegated down to P5 due to his penalties. Next up we have Skatey behind, he runs a bit wide then, penultimate corner. Just having a look, he's actually 3 seconds penalties down on Duppy, but that gap should be big enough for the Ferrari driver, so Skatey with another solid points finish as he crashes across the line there. He's going to finish the race in P6. Duffy going to finish the French Grand Prix in what looks is going to be 7th place. Obviously, he's going to get those points for the Renault team. Just in the wrong car today. IE Pony finishes P8. Assassin actually tops Enigma across the line for P9 and P10 respectively. And then JSR and Lemon round off the race results.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a little gap back down to JSR and Lemon. They will come across the line. The only true drivers who will not be receiving points who have finished this race today. So an unlucky race for both of them. Lemon, we really did see him giving it his all, and JSR also giving it his all there as he gets the fastest lap of the race as he comes across the line. Not enough to get him any points though, as he does finish down in 11th place. Interestingly enough, it's pretty notable that Corny is the driver who in the last race, he came across the line in second, but he won the race regardless due to penalties. And once again, that is the situation we've seen here. So that's interesting that he's picked up 2 wins so far, and both of them have been inherited after penalties to the driver ahead.
Yeah, so it looks like after starting the season with a strong Haas stream and those drivers departing the league, we still have 2 very strong Haas drivers here who are definitely going to be challenging for the podium and for the wins several times this season. Ramdrop really missing out on points here. Interestingly enough, IE Pony is the closest opponent before this race. Actually only finished in P8, so wasn't really able to profit from Ramdrop being not available for the race today.
Yeah, and it's a good race for the Finnish drivers and for the Haas F1 team. 2 Finnish drivers on the podium, both members of that Haas team. And Adidas Tracksuit coming along the line coming across the line rather in 5th as well. So pretty decent stuff. Yeah, very impressed with Martin G's showing today. Of course, he didn't quite have the discipline that the likes of Collis and Lasser had in the end, but he showed some really excellent pace, and so exciting to see what he's going to be able to do in races to come.
Yeah, it looks like we already have an interview partner ready for the race. That was very quick, so I'm just going to pull him in. Let's say good evening to Lemon.
Good evening.
So, Lemon, a bit of a chaotic race considering the weather and strategies. Looked like strategy didn't go your way tonight.
I had a little bit. I had double puncture, so it was hard to go to the pit lane as I got it in first. And then I wanted to stay as long as possible because my engineer said that the rain will take 10 minutes at about when my tires were about 60% of wear, so I thought I can make them to the dry conditions, but but rain stopped falling and it was still wet. So that wasn't good, but at least I had the fastest lap of the race by 1.5 seconds.
Yeah, very unfortunate for you there. Sorry, Aladar, I didn't want to cut you off.
No, that's alright. Wasn't planning on saying anything.
Alright, another one with a rather frustrating race is JSR. Good evening to you.
Hello. Seems like a weekly theme, doesn't it?
Yeah, I didn't want to say it, but yeah, you've had a few frustrating last few rounds.
Yeah.
Again today, finishing P11. That's all the positions. That's not where you want to be. P11. Very
No.
frustrating. Tell us a bit about the race from your perspective.
Oh, where should I start? Yeah, well, qualifying wasn't great for some reason. My pace around here just generally seemed pretty poor altogether. Driving in cockpit view means that I can't really see the apexes very well, particularly like turn 1 and turn 2. It's not easy to negotiate. So, but I don't know. My sector 3 time just seemed to be constantly bad in comparison to other people. So I think I started 11th, which usually would have been okay if it had been dry, because then I would have had tyre choice. But yeah, and then start of the race, got away sort of okay. I think I was up 1 position, and then coming into turn 3, I think was it IE Pony? It was a Williams that went round anyway, and then it all got a bit tight, and I tried to squeeze between the gap of the back of the spinning Williams and someone that was on my left, and unfortunately somehow both parts of my wing ended up being clipped and damaged. So I had to pit, and then kind of like as Lemon was saying, I tried to stretch out the interstint to see if I could just pit once later on when it went dry, and I had the same message from my engineer. And I also had 1 puncture when I came into the pit lane. So very similar. And then yeah, and then it was just kind of driving around on my own for most of the race and letting faster people go by without being able to do anything really. So yeah, pretty disappointing.
Yeah, I feel you there. I know the feeling to finish in P11. It's very unrewarding, to say the least. Another one joining us in the commentary box this evening is Corny. Good evening to you.
Hello.
And why not, for a change, I'll give the microphone to Aladar.
Okay, well yeah, so Corny, we noticed you had a pretty solid race today, pretty in touch with some of the faster drivers around here, coming home in 4th position, I believe. How was the race from your perspective?
It was a good race. I'm a little bit messed up, so I messed the start a little bit up, dropped to 5th or 6th, but could fight up again, and in lap 17 or 18 I got an unfair stop and go for going a little bit too wide into turn 14 or 15, I don't know, and yeah, it was a quiet race for me, and that unfair stop and go penalty just cost me the 3rd place.
Yeah, we actually caught that stop-go penalty on stream, and it's a really big shame you had to serve it in the race, because otherwise you could have appealed it, I think, because that was really quite unfair. I do agree with you, so commiserations for that one. You were involved in quite a lot of battling on the first few laps, I believe, between positions 3 to about 7, so that was do you have any particular comments on that opening few laps?
It was quite funny, and a little bit got pushed off the track, but it was all in a fair case, and it was really fun.
Yeah, no, I was quite impressed by how clean in general that seemed to be, particularly in the wet conditions around a track that people perhaps don't know quite so well as some of the other ones, but everyone seemed to keep it, broadly speaking, clean.
Yeah, so if you don't have any other questions, Aladar, I want to thank you for joining me into the commentary box as usual.
And thank you once again for having me, as usual.
And it was a great race from my perspective. A lot of crazy things happening, rain mixing up things a little bit, as it usually does, which is always great to see. Our first race of the season, now round 8, so we'll have to wait and see if we're gonna get a few more of those to enjoy. And obviously, I want to have a big shout out to Hype Energy, who sponsor our F1 leagues. Big thank you to Elgato, who make the streams possible the way they are. And so obviously a big shout out to our other AOR sponsors, those are Thrustmaster and GT Omega Racing. Be sure to check them out. And yeah, we're going to see you next week, hopefully, at 8 p.m. UK time on Sunday for the Austrian Grand Prix. So again, a race I'm looking forward to, with a good few overtaking opportunities. And I hope I'm going to see you viewing, you driving, and Aladar, you commentating with me next week.
Yeah, should be business as usual.
All right, so in that case, obviously, thanks for watching, everyone, for tonight, and I hope we see you next week for the Austrian Grand Prix here at AOR F3 PC League Season 16, and I wish you all a very, very nice evening. Goodbye.